this is the first of really a two-step process. The general public is going to have an opportunity to meet and greet and kind of go through a scenario similar to this on tomorrow. And they'll also be meeting other elected leaders in our county as well. So I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for being engaged. Thank you for your many comments, good, bad, ugly, and different, that I've gotten via email, hard letters, and all that. That's been informative. I know you said Lee never responded back to me. No, I didn't, because it's a lot of it. It's a lot of emails, a lot of correspondence, and but just rest assured that I did read. I have read just about everything. I've pulled up articles. I've heard other people's comments and references and all of that. So I'm excited about today. And I don't know what's next on the Benita Ransom is coming on up, our Merit System HR Director, Benita Ransom.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Want to get everybody, come on, good afternoon. Oh, that's better. I want to thank our interim CEO, Lee May, for the opportunity of recruiting for this very important position. The staff has done a great job, and I just kind of want to take a moment to just get them to stand. Come on, they've worked very hard in trying to identify a very well-qualified candidate. I'm also delighted to introduce our moderator. She is Paula Gwen Grant. She has over 20 years of experience in public relations. She has also served as a radio and television broadcaster. If you don't know, or many of you may know her as the host of DeKalb, which is on DCTV. And if you don't recognize her from there, she's also Vice President of Communications and Community Development for the DeKalb County Housing Authority. And there she is responsible for all of the external and internal communications. Ms. Grant also has served as a public relations advisor for a number of local and national politicians. So you can see why we were very excited to have someone who has a good understanding of government and the media. So without further ado, I give you Ms. Grant.
Thank you so much. Good to have you all here. Thank you for taking the time today to come on out. This is very, very important. I'm really proud to be here to serve as your moderator for this informative event. Now, the purpose of today's forum is to really introduce the Fire Rescue Chief finalists to you. This is a professional courtesy. Before the public meets them, you need to meet them. And today's forum will begin with me selecting the name of the candidate who will provide the first opening statement. Now, both candidates will be given 3 minutes to tell us why they should be DeKalb County's next fire rescue chief. After opening statements, each candidate will alternate responding to the questions that you have submitted, and we have 31 questions submitted here. Now, before we continue, I would like to ask everyone to take a look at your cell phones. We would hate to have any cell phones ringing throughout this process. If you could put them on vibrate or silent, I understand you cannot turn them off, but if we could just respect the room for this next hour, this will be fantastic. Again, 31 questions have been submitted by fire rescue employees, and so we have some time here today to get these questions in and have the candidates address as many as time will permit. So I'm going to randomly pull the questions from the bowl I have up here, and the candidates will then have 2 minutes to respond to each question that we have. Now, Human Resources has screened all the questions in advance. If there were any duplicate questions about the same topic, we reduced that to one question and included that one question in the bowl, and that will allow us to really address a wide range of questions here today. At the end of our question and answer session, each candidate will be given 3 minutes for the closing statement, and the person that went first will give our final closing statement. So let me get my hand in here now, and let's get started. That's what we're all here for. I'm going to pull the name of the person who will begin with opening statements. And that will be Chief Everett. Okay. All right, just one moment. This is our time. We got our timekeeper at the door. Brian, I thank you so much for helping me out today.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for allowing me to come speak and address you today. Particularly thank you, Mr. May, for putting together this type of forum. It does give an opportunity for you all to ask questions and get to know me, and it also gives me the opportunity to get to know you as well. I would first like to capitalize on the opening remarks that Mr. May made. I did not come here today seeking the opportunity to find a position as a fire chief. I came here today seeking the opportunity to find a community to serve, an organization to serve, and to put myself in the place of being an excellent public servant. A fire chief is one who is tasked with many responsibilities, leadership being one, accountability being another. My role that I believe is to come here to look at what you're currently doing, and as with each fire department, you have your own traditions. You have traditions that don't necessarily need to be changed, but may need to be enhanced. As I speak to you today, I'll speak to you from the perspective from those organizations in which I've served in a leadership capacity. So because I may not have time to go into every single one, I'll just kind of give you a reference of the departments that I've been with. I've served as a fire commissioner in Miami-Dade County, a district chief in Orange County, Florida, a deputy chief at the city of Rochester in New York, a fire chief for College Park, and I'm currently the fire chief in Gary, Indiana. So I think I bring to you a wide berth of background and experiences from different parts of the country. One thing that I can say to you, while fire departments may be different, they're all very much the same. We all come together to serve. We have a community. We all have individuals that we're answerable to. I believe in 3 basic concepts that any organization should focus on: customer service, competency, and professionalism. Those are the things that I believe that any organization should stand for. I don't believe there's a chief officer or company officer in the room that doesn't believe in accountability and leadership for the personnel that they're charged with. That is what I believe my role would be here as a servant, again, for DeKalb County and for the DeKalb County Fire Department. So with that, I'm going to think I'm within my 3 minutes. I don't know. I don't have a clock.
Thank you so much. That's okay. We have a clock
you.
for you. Thank you, Chief Everett. Chief Fulham.
Okay. Well, good afternoon to everybody. And I also want to thank Interim CEO May for this opportunity on this rainy afternoon, and to the VOC that's in the room as well. I really believe I'm not here by chance. I really do. You have my bio, and you had an opportunity to see where I've been. I joined the military at 18 years old, and that was my first opportunity into leadership. I found myself in charge of a squad of 3 personnel and about $1 million worth of equipment at age 20. After leaving the military, I went on and joined the fire department. I've been with the same fire department for 26 years, and I progressed through all the ranks, just about every facet, I believe, of the department. I, too, don't come here looking for a job. I want to be the fire chief. I want the opportunity to serve this community. I truly believe that leadership is about empowering others, and that you truly have to appreciate people. I'm sorry.
A request for the mic to come a bit closer. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I was saying that I believe that leadership is about empowering others, and that you truly have to appreciate and want to see others' success. So with that, I'll just say that I look forward to joining the stellar fire department and serving this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question comes from Cedric Fowler, and the question is, what are your 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year plans? Chief Fulham.
2-year,
2, 5, and 10-year plans.
2-year, 5-year, and 10-year plans.
Yes, sir.
Well, I believe it starts with the first 30 days. And in that first 30 days, what I'm going to do is what I call structured learning. I'm going to learn about this department. I'm going to learn about those peer agencies that we need to work with, which are usually finance, purchasing, human resources, because I need to come in and learn before I start deciding what I'm going to do in those 2, 5, and 10-year increments. However, I do know that it's important that we address the issue of an ISO rating. I know that that was one of your goals for this year. I don't know if it's been obtained yet. I know you have a Class 3, but we can reach a 2, and we can strive for a 1. I also think that accreditation is important, and that's usually going to be, for you all that know, that's about a 5-year plan that you're committing to. So I believe it's important that the department commits to that, because you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn about your deployment of resources. You're going to learn, are you measuring up from a national standpoint, not just those internal benchmarks.
Thank you. Chief Everett, your 2, 5, and 10-year plans.
Initially, the start would be very much the same. However, I would expand my assessment to not just the organization, but to also assessing the working relationships that we have with external sources, because I believe they go hand in hand. The fire department serves not just one entity. The fire department here serves a multitude of cities, communities, and other perspectives. So while you're assessing both your internal responsibilities, it's necessary to examine your external partnerships that you have to maintain. That would take place within the first 6 months. The 2-year goal, as he's referenced, obviously if you're going to go through any type of assessment for your organization, ISO is one that's probably key. We just recently completed an ISO assessment in Gary, Indiana, so I'm very familiar with what the requirements are. Your achievements for 2 years are going to be to stabilize your organization, to identify what the succession planning should be, and to examine all of your external resources to see what if you're meeting the needs of your external customers. It's not just internal, there's a lot of external. At 5 years, we should be stabilized. There should be succession planning in place. Your goals should be streamlined. You should have a strategic plan, a comprehensive plan, and also the ability to continue immediately putting out annual reports. I think it's important that we communicate both internally and externally with all of our partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Jason Smith. He says, over the last few years, DeKalb County has seen the addition of several incorporated municipalities within the county. In 2014, several other new cities could go before the Georgia General Assembly for approval. So the question is, please briefly describe your plan to ensure that all existing and new cities within DeKalb County continue to rely on DCFR as their service provider. So how will you describe your plan for the existing cities and the new cities within DeKalb County to continue to rely on this department? Chief Everett.
I alluded to that in the answer to my previous question, which is we must assess our responsibilities in the service that we're provided to our external sources. There may be reasons that these cities have decided they may want to incorporate or remove themselves. The first thing to do is to understand that each city has its own individual needs. So the first thing that I would look at is, why are you with us? Why would you want to leave? What can we do to keep you as a continued customer? What can we do to meet your individual need? Oftentimes, departments put out reports, but they put out reports that are based on one amorphous area. I would look at making sure that each of our city partners gets a report that dictates and details what we do for their individual city, because their needs are very much different. So the first thing is going to be an assessment, strengthening of partnerships, working with the elected officials, the CEO, the COO, to see what their goals are, what they're looking for in our continued service. There are going to be opportunities to grow. There are also going to be those communities that may opt to try to go in a different direction. Now, having seen this over the country, I can tell you one thing. Pulling away with a police department is one thing. Fire departments tend to be a bit expensive. We know how much our so-called toys cost. A lot of different cities may opt to think they want to have their own individual department because they feel a need is not being met. I believe by assessing what we do and assessing what the needs are, we can talk to those different communities and address those concerns before they venture out on that new relationship.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, your plan to ensure that all existing and new cities within DeKalb County continue to rely on the DeKalb County Fire Department.
Yes. Well, I'm very familiar with this. Being right next door, we experienced several cities leaving and deciding to start their own fire department. So I know that process and how painful that can be. First of all, to me, it starts with one thing, and understanding that they're leaving for a reason. It may be a perception. There's a saying that I like that goes, perception void of fact is reality. So we have to demonstrate to these cities what they're getting right now from DeKalb County, the service that they're getting from DeKalb County Fire. And we have to demonstrate that in a meaningful way. So we have to change their perception. We also have to look at it from the standpoint of what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, and where can we improve when it comes to these cities. It's not just about the fire trucks pulling up, and we all know that. It's those other services. It's the fire education. It's the fire marshal's office. These are key services, especially to these cities, because of their growth.
Next question comes from Tremaine McMurray. The current recruit class has 50 people and 7 or less minorities. This is obviously an adverse impact on minorities. The question is, what will you do to ensure that this does not continue to happen? Chief Fulham.
7 minorities.
7
in a
minorities
class of 50.
in a class of 50.
Yes. Well, first it starts with branding our department. We have to show our department as being one that's open to inclusion, not exclusion, of any group. If there's only 7 in the class, I'd have to wonder what was the recruitment like. So how many decided that they wanted to become a firefighter? Recruitment starts, it's 365 days a year. I had the opportunity to work with what was called the gender initiative. And through that program, we were able to increase our numbers of female candidates. And what we recognized very quickly, that we had to reach out to our current firefighters, female and male, and find out, why would you not want to be a firefighter? Interestingly enough, the female firefighter said they wouldn't recommend our department, and that was kind of embarrassing. So we learned, what did we have to do? What did we have to change in order to make our department more open to not only females, but to all groups?
Chief Everett, what would you do to not have this continue? Again, 7 or less minorities out of a recruit class of 50.
I've got to try to answer this very carefully, being a female, so see how can I do this. I'll start out by saying part of my background has been one that I've had to serve as a leader for diversity. I don't know why, but for some reason I'm always tasked with that. In Rochester, New York, the then Mayor Robert Duffy tasked me to lead a diversity and stratification process for both police, fire, and the 911 system. The police department at the time was under a consent decree. One of the first things I had to do was put together a program to increase diversity throughout the department. They had, let's say, 500 of one thing and maybe 35 of something else, without going into detail. One of the things we first looked at was recruitment. Where are you going to find a group of people that closely match the expectations of the fire service? The fire service is not for everyone, be you black, white, green, pink, blue, apple, orange, grapefruit. It's not for everyone. It's a profession, and you have to find people that can match those particular expectations. One of the things that we looked at was reaching out and starting it early on into the high schools. High school students need to be exposed to the career because a lot of times minority students are not. I can honestly speak for myself. When I went to high school, I don't think I ever even saw a fire truck. I went to high school in Tuskegee, Alabama, and graduated high school in Newburgh, New York on a military base. I don't think I saw any fires on that base. So therefore, my exposure to the fire service was somewhat limited. However, it did not deter me from wanting to seek this out as a career in which to excel. So again, the first thing I would put out is diversity is not akin to lowering of standards. Diversity is about, as been referenced, inclusion and involving people who are committed to what this particular profession has to bring. I think I have a demonstrated track record in doing that. The department that I'm on now does not have that many women. The recruit class that I was involved with is under the auspices of the Fire Commission, but I have been asked to set up a specific recruitment for females.
Thank you. Next question from Monica Bembry. Describe a decision that you made or a situation that you were involved in that was a failure, and what did you learn from that situation? Chief Everett. A decision that was made or a situation that you were involved in that was a failure, and what did you learn from that situation?
I'm not going to necessarily say it was a complete failure, but I will say it's probably something that I would look at possibly being able to handle with a little more lead time. Recently in Gary, Indiana, when I arrived, it was necessary for us to cut over $1 million from our budget. And the decision was that we were going to combine a civilian-based EMS with fire-based EMS, and it resulted in us having to lay off about 17 people. And unfortunately, the civilians that we laid off to allow the firefighter EMTs to deliver the service had to be laid off 2 weeks before Christmas. I think that was the timing issue that I wish with anything in my heart that we could have done differently. The outcome would have been the same. However, our efforts to do that staffing reduction did not come to fruition till almost pretty much approved by council on New Year's Eve, actually. So it was a very stressful time for the community. It was a very stressful time for the family. and we are still feeling the aftermath of that action. So again, while the reduction had to be done in order to stabilize our workforce and operate within the financial constraints we had, the timing of that process, I wish could have been a bit earlier so it did not run into the holidays.
Chief Fulham, a decision you made or a situation you were involved in that was deemed a failure, and what you learned?
Well, I also don't know that I would deem it a failure, but we did come up a little short. And what we attempted to do in Fulton County, we were going to start a fire assessment, sort of like the fire fund that you have here in DeKalb County. And I was tasked with creating, if you will, the nuts and bolts of that fire assessment, how it was going to work. It's very popular in the Florida area, and we were hoping to be able to do it in Fulton County. Through all my hard work, at the end of the day, it was not brought forth. It was stopped at the commissioner's level. And for a minute, I felt as though maybe I could have done more, but I recognized very quickly that timing is everything. And the timing wasn't right for this item. I still have it all in all the documents and ready to bring it back out as necessary. But you have to realize sometimes that your hard work is not going to be enough.
This next question is from Danny McIntosh. He says, we have not had a raise in years, and expenses have risen. Now, we've been told that although we're starving, we just need to tighten our belts, and things will get better eventually. All of the employees, Danny McIntosh included, of the DeKalb DCFR are blessed to have a job. But they're wondering what your specific plan is to get a continuing pay increase. Chief Fulham.
Well, through my research, first of all, let me say that I was glad to see that there were some initiatives that are in place that, as CEO May mentioned, he does see that public service is important. And so I seen where there was going to be a 3%, I believe, increase, and that looking at different things such as the college reimbursement. So it is, if you will, at the front of the dashboard. I do realize we have to be good stewards of our money, okay? Even from the fire department standpoint, the money that we have, that we receive every year for our budgets, we have to be good stewards of it, and we have to be able to save when we can. There is a fiscal reality to our job, and I believe we all realize that. My job would be to make sure that the CEO does realize and does keep it in mind that the ability to keep good people is sometimes based upon what you pay them. And so we do want to make sure. I've seen where we're also doing a pay class study, and I believe that's going to produce some fruit and demonstrate maybe why, as the CEO said, people are leaving and choosing other jobs. In some cases, that could be because of pay. So my job, once again, is just to work with the Board of Commissioners and the CEO to make sure that that issue.
Please finish your answer,
Okay.
please, in this last sentence.
Okay, that issue does not fall off the chart.
Thank you. That's time on that answer. Chief Everett, the question, your specific plan for continuing pay increase.
Pleased to hear that a pay increase is underway. Thank you to all of the elected officials for seeing that that's going to happen. One of the first things that I would do, and I think one of the things I looked at coming here, was to assess the current budget to see where there are areas of realignment, that possibly additional funding is already available, and how we're currently doing business that can be used to leverage future raises. There are oftentimes things that we're doing that can be done less expensively or more efficiently, and those funds can be transferred in. There's also opportunities for employees to come up with suggestions on how they see that the department can operate more efficiently, and again, challenge more money. It's not necessarily about charging more external fees, but it's about using what we have more effectively. And I think by looking at, you've had some people that have left. I'm sure that has left some additional salary resources in your budget. The way that you're doing business is being streamlined. There are also some external initiatives. For example, we passed a local option income tax there. It kind of came from the state, but that was able to generate dollars specifically earmarked for public safety. We took on and accepted donations from public entities. I was able to buy 10 pieces of apparatus through a private donation. So there are other opportunities to offset the cost of doing business that can be channeled back into raises. And I do recognize the importance of being competitive with the market around you. You also have to assess the level of service that you provide in comparison for your market analysis.
Thank you. Now, Cedric Fowler asks a question along the same line, so let's continue in that vein.
Okay.
In an ever-increasing competition with other departments for skilled firefighters, how do you plan to reward and retain good employees? How do you plan to reward and retain good employees, Chief Everett?
One of the first things I think we will look at is succession planning and a clear career ladder. Every employee wants to know, what do I need to do in order to move up within the organization? And if that is not clearly communicated what the expectations are, some people will leave not just because of the money, but because they'll feel there's no opportunity to move upward. So if you're coming in as a new firefighter, you've compared this department to 3 or 4 across the state, possibly some within outside of the state, you're looking to, what is this department going to offer me in my exchange for a commitment to serve this community? I think the first thing to do is look at a clear career ladder, what it takes to move from rank to rank, what it is to achieve, how long it's going to take to achieve, and then do an analysis. Are we paying stipends? Are we paying additional funds for your different certifications? If you have a certification as an EMT, a paramedic, whatever your certification might be, is there the opportunity to get additional funding or resources for that? But it has to be clear to each employee what they'll receive and help them do that analysis as they compare themselves to other surrounding departments. I can say this, starting salaries aren't everything. You can start out at that salary and be there for 10 years and not have an opportunity to move up. So we have to make sure that what we're doing is competitive across the board, not just with salary.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, your plan to reward and retain good employees.
Well, I am a believer that a salary is only the starting point. There's other things that make a person leave or stay at a job. And so through focus groups, I'm going to define what those are. What are those other issues maybe that makes people decide that they do not want to work here or they want to go somewhere else? And on the other side of that, I want to find out what makes people come here. I believe this is a great place to work. And I would wonder why somebody would decide later on in their years that it may not be the place that they want to work anymore. I do also believe that succession planning is important. It's important that individuals know how they can move through the ranks and move to the higher levels. It's also important for them to know if they decide they want to be right where they are, they want to be the best driver in the world, that we're going to give them all the training that they need to do the job.
Thank you. Our next question is from Willie Martin. And the question is, have you ever worked in the administration and supply logistics section of fire rescue departments? And if so, what positions did you hold? Working in administration or supply logistics? Chief Fulham.
Well, I work there now, so if I understand the question correctly, I oversee, if you will. I'm in charge of our logistics and our administration section. The administration section includes the human resources, the budget, logistics, fleet maintenance, all of the fire marshals, components, fire education, inspections, the investigation. So I've worked in it from that standpoint. I understand it. Matter of fact, earlier this year I was in South Dakota at a pre-fire build for fire trucks. I have overseen the construction of fire stations, turnout gear, uniforms. So I have worked from that standpoint of being in charge of those sections and do have a great understanding of it.
Thank you. Chief Everett, have you ever worked in administration and supply logistics sections of the fire rescue departments? If so, what positions did you hold?
Well, fire chief is administration, let us hope. So I am in administration. I've done quite a bit of that. I've worked in the training division. I've been an assistant fire marshal. I've also worked in the budget department. When I came on, unfortunately, we didn't have supply. You kind of got what you had to get, and that was kind of it. I don't remember us having supply. By the time I got to that point, there was not a supply unit. As it relates to fleet maintenance and logistics, Personally, I've just established a fleet maintenance and logistics department where I am. We just went through a major purchase of fleet, as I just described, so I'm very familiar with putting together the specs, the purchasing process. It was a very participatory process, so I can't think there's any part of the organization that I have not been in based on the fact that I entered back in 1989. I know you won't believe that, but that's when I started my career. So some of the departments that you have now, as I came on board, they really did not exist at that time. But all the primary areas I've served in, including supervising EMS, special operations. I'm just trying to think what would be different that you have here.
Thank you. Next question is from Jason Smith. If cities within DeKalb form their own fire rescue department, how will you make adjustments as far as personnel and equipment? If municipalities form their own fire rescue department, how will you make adjustments as far as personnel and equipment? Chief Everett?
I'd like to say that first we're going to do everything possible to make sure that they stay with us. And I'd like to think that that would be a last resort, that people would find another methodology to provide their fire and emergency medical services. With that being said, obviously, if territory that we're responding to is pulled away, it's only reasonable to assume that was probably going to reduce at some point in some type of level of service reduction, possibly even layoffs, depending on the area that pulls away. So that is something we'd obviously want to prevent. Or we would need to recreate a way to use our personnel. If you see that a major city is pulling off, you need to get out in front of that ahead of time and create other opportunities in which we can maintain our personnel and possibly channel their services somewhere else. But I want to emphasize, I would hope that that would be a method of last resort, or we can come up with a shared services concept that allows our personnel to maintain their jobs while possibly trying to work with them as they strategize. But again, last resort, hopefully.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, how would you make adjustments as far as personnel and equipment should cities decide to form their own fire rescue department?
Well, I too believe that hopefully they won't leave, that they'll see that we are their best choice. However, if that was the case, I think you have to first update your standard of response coverage. What we all know in most cases, we don't have enough equipment out there. If a fire chief's asked, are fire stations in the right location, more than likely the answer is going to be no. The fire stations were put in place at a time. They met the response at the time, but as we all know, the locations have changed. So the first idea would be to go back to our standard of response. Let's take a look and make sure that we have proper coverage. Just because they're leaving doesn't mean that we're going to be okay. We may be able to relocate that equipment. We may be able to relocate those people. We may need to put a station at a different location.
Thank you. This next question is from Tremaine McMurray. Are you willing, within legal authority, to audit the appointed positions and correct the wrongdoings of past administrations? And if it is found that the requirements, namely education, were not met at the time of promotion, are you willing to right the wrong?
Could you ask that question?
Sure. Are you willing, within legal authority, to audit the appointed positions and correct the wrongdoings of past administrations if it is found that requirements, such as education, were not met at the time of promotion? Are you willing to right that wrong? Chief Fulham.
Okay. Well, within that first 30 to 60 days, there's going to be an audit of all positions in all of the fire department. So when saying if I was to discover that there was a person in a position that they were not qualified for, then my first step would be to follow up with human resources and to find out, was there a concession made? I may not know that. So maybe there was a concession made at the time, and I'm not going to be willing to change a decision which would have been a good decision at the time simply because I'm here now. I think I would have to go deeper into it and find out why that individual was in the position, why they were allowed to be promoted. And if there was something wrong with the promotion, then yes, I'd be willing to change it.
Thank you. Chief Everett, same question. Within legal authority, auditing appointed positions and correcting any wrongdoings of the past, if you discover that requirements were not met, would you be willing to correct that?
Let me start out by saying I'm currently in a system now that's governed very much similar to the situation you're referencing. I have a set of positions that are governed under civil service, under which I have absolutely no control, and I have a group of positions that I can appoint to, which are considered support services. One of the first things that I do when I come to any organizations, and I sit down and I meet with the department heads, those bureau chiefs, section chiefs, division chiefs, and try to get to know what it is they do and how they're carrying it out. That is then compared to what the needs of the organization are. I'm going to review the job descriptions. There's no need for immediate action until I know currently what I have and conduct an assessment. Sometimes you'll find a job description will say certain number of years of experience and or degree, and you have to be very clear on what that means. There will also be the opportunity for those people to come forward to share with me based on me indicating to them what the expectations of the organization are. Do they continue to wish to serve? Sometimes under new leadership, people opt to go in another direction. If there are needs for corrective actions, those actions will be taken within the constraints that are available to a person. But as it's been referenced, sometimes there are concessions that have been made or agreements that have been made, and you have to look and see if those were carried out. If a person was given a job with the understanding that you will achieve a degree within 2 years or 3 years, and you have not done that, then you have not met the obligations that were given to you when you assumed that position. That is what I'm going to look at, your performance evaluations, where we are, and where the organization is going. Those might not be positions that we're going to continue with anyway after we look at what our services are.
Thank you. Next question is from Juana Ryans. Over the last few years, sworn personnel have been given cost of living and monetary increases. Sworn personnel. Civilian employees have not received increases. The question: how do you plan to accommodate civilian employees who have not had a salary increase in the last few years? Chief Everett.
That must be a trick question, because last year I gave my civilian employees a raise and the sworn individuals did not. So I believe there has to be an opportunity for equal distribution of resources, and sometimes it depends on what's available in the funding stream that you're using. There are times that you can take monies for sworn personnel out of a different pot than you can for civilians. However, I believe there has to be the ability to make sure all personnel receive equal consideration in the allocation of an increased salary, increased benefits, and to make sure that they're treated the same. As again, I've been in places where you can do one year and you have to do the other year because they come from different funding streams. But I do believe that all personnel should be equally compensated for a job well done.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, your plan to accommodate civilian employees who have not had a salary increase in the last few years.
This question I find very interesting because right now, currently, most of the individuals that directly report to me are what we would consider to be civilians. So I understand the issue that sometimes there's not always the same career path for civilians in the fire service as there is for the sworn individuals. I think when it comes to pay raises, more than likely those are going to be directed from above, and it's going to be decided across the board throughout the county. However, there's other opportunities, as I spoke about earlier. It may not be pay, but it may be training. It may be other opportunities that we can give to the civilian so that they can also realize their dreams as it is in the organization.
Thank you. Now, I think this next question was covered within another, but I will ask it out of formality, and just let me know if you'd like to move to the next question because you feel you have covered this already. D.M. Porter asks, our current promotional practices are often changed to suit the needs of the chief. If you were to change this process to make promotions fair, what are some of the issues related to promotions that you would like to address? Chief
I
Everett,
can respond.
do you feel
but
that
it's
you've
his turn.
answered this question, Chief Everett? I'll let you have the floor.
I have some more I could add, but I believe, is it his turn or mine?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief Fulham, we'll let
Yes,
you
I
go
have
first
some
on
more.
this question, sir.
Yes. Repeat the question just one
Yes,
more time.
absolutely. The question is, if you were to change the process, the promotional practices process, to make promotions fair, what are some of the issues related to promotions that you would address?
Okay. First of all, I'm a believer that a quality process produces quality candidates. So for me, it's very important that that process is transparent, that individuals know exactly what's expected ahead of time, that they can be prepared for the process. I've discovered that if there's 50 individuals that apply for a job and there's only 5 positions, I can guarantee I'm going to make 5 people happy. But the rest I can't guarantee. However, through that process, we want to make sure it's transparent and that we have quality candidates who are coming out the other side. We also want to make sure that we are developing them for not only that position, but any other position that they may want. So I am going to do a forensic look at the promotional exam process, and whatever's in the power of the chief to change, I will take a look at it and make sure that it is fair, that it is an open process that benefits everyone.
Thank you. Chief Everett, the same question. If you were to change the promotional practices process to make promotions more fair, what are some of the issues related to promotions that you would address?
I believe the hiring of recruits is equally as important as the promotional process within an organization. Oftentimes, organizations place a great deal of money and emphasis on hiring recruits and forget to place the same emphasis and concern on the promotional opportunity and the promotional process from within. The first thing that I would look at is do a thorough analysis of your current process. Is the process multidimensional, and is it comprehensive? If it's just a pen and paper in an interview, perhaps we need to include things such as an assessment center and other types of components, because some people test very well on paper but are not quite able to carry those tasks out when you're put through an assessment center. So for me, it's multidimensional, comprehensive, and also make sure that it's a valid process. Is it an internal process that's done by subject matter experts internally, or are you using an outside contractor? If you're using an outside contractor, what are the credentials of that particular contractor? But I want to look at how the process is made up, what the results have been over the last 5 years, what the promotional process has been, and again, make sure it is comprehensive and multidimensional, and the requirements for each level are clearly articulated.
Thank you so much. We're asking that you pull those microphones close to you so that all can hear you clearly, even in the back of the room. We thank you. That's wonderful. Candace Hairston asks this next question. Describe a decision that you made that was unpopular and how you dealt with implementing it. What was the outcome of that? Chief Everett.
I guess as a sitting fire chief, I'll take that hit. The decision that I had to make was one that involves a situation that we're dealing with known as time trades. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the situation that took place in Cleveland. When I arrived at my current location, fire personnel were able to trade 9 shifts a month. How many shifts do we work? Okay. I came in and had to reduce the ability of individuals to trade 9 shifts and reduce that down to pretty much 2.5 shifts a month. The reason for that was that in our community, we're very much challenged economically, and many of the firefighters were working other jobs in order to supplement their incomes. I recognized the need to do time trades for non-continuing events, but it should not be something that you trade off every shift, that you're to come to work every month, come in to work in the evening, not be able to participate with your crew, train, or provide support. So that is a decision that I made that is not popular. However, it is in the best interest of the organization, and many of the company officers supported that decision because now they have personnel that come to work on a regular basis. So mine was dealing with time trades.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, a decision that was unpopular, but you implemented it, and what was the outcome?
Okay. Well, actually, mine would be attached to the last question, I guess. It was dealing with promotions. Several years ago, 2009, I believe it was, we hadn't had promotions for quite a while. And during that time, Human Resources, our personnel department, had changed how we could promote. We were not allowed to use written tests anymore. So in this case, we were not allowed to use a written test. So we had to come up with a different process. We created a assessment center. And through that assessment center, the candidates were going to have to go before boards. This was going to be new to them. We did do some training on the front end, but it wasn't popular. And what we found out was it wasn't popular in some cases because the individuals felt as though with a written test, they had the questions or the answers in front of them. In this case, with a board in front of them, they had to come up with the answers. It was unpopular at the time. We've done it probably 4 or 5 times now. And I believe at this point, if you would ask, most individuals would say they like this process. They like the fact that the answers are not in front of them. So it wasn't popular at the time, but I believe if you would ask once again, you'd find that they do agree with the changes we made.
Thank you. Our next question is from Tremaine McMurray. The Fire Rescue Explorer Program is a career development program focused on DeKalb County's youth, ages 14 to 20. Will you be in full support of this program and its need for training, community involvement, and other necessary resources? Chief Fulham.
Absolutely. I think it's a great program. It's one of the programs, when I looked at it and I saw it, I would like for us to emulate it in my department. I looked at it probably about 2-3 years ago, and we have actually hired some firefighters that came out of your program. So, yes, I would keep the program. I think it's an opportunity for those individuals in the county who think they would want to be a firefighter. It gives them an opportunity to experience it. When we talk about diversity, whether it's male, females, by race, I think it gives them an opportunity to see the fire service, see it up close and personal, and to know whether they want to do it as a job. So, yes, I'm in full support of the program.
Thank you. Chief Everett?
I'm extremely supportive of the Explorers. I had the opportunity to work with a program that's probably one step level above that in Rochester, New York, where I referenced the firefighter training program. There, we had high school students who not only took fire training classes as a part of their regular curriculum, but we also paid them a salary while they were there in high school that allowed them to transition on to employment with the fire department. So many of those students, once you were accepted and screened and tested into that high school component, you were allowed to transition to a pretty much guaranteed job with the Rochester Fire Department, providing that you met all the performance criteria. It was a very good program. It allowed us an opportunity for diversity while at the same time increasing the responsibility and exposure of those high school students to the program. So, yes, I'm definitely supportive of Explorer, and it fits right down the line of what I've been doing previously.
Thank you so much. Tanisha Boone asks, what plans do you have to redirect morale and leadership in operations and administration of this fire department? Chief Everett?
To redirect?
To redirect the morale and leadership in operations and administration, your plans.
By redirecting, I'm assuming that means that there's some opportunities or there's some need to increase morale to probably a higher or more significant level of appreciation for the public service positions that we hold. And I think the first thing with that is allowing the personnel to be heard. What is causing that lack of appreciation for what we're doing or feeling that we're not appreciated outside? I want to hear what is contributing to the need for the increased or the low morale. For example, is it salaries? Is it work condition? Is it that you haven't got new apparatus? Do you just feel that generally the administration does not recognize the services that you provide? So definitely I would need to first hear what are the contributing factors, but by all means whatever could be done to increase morale would be addressed within reason. I mean, I can't give everybody a $10,000 raise right off the bat, but I'm sure there's some things that we can agree need to be done. Employee recognition being the first, having your voices heard being the second.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, your plans to redirect morale and leadership in operations and administration.
Okay. Well, I once heard a fire chief say the best advice he could give a new fire chief is to shut up and listen. And so I think I'll start with there. I need to go out to the stations and talk to the crews and find out why they feel, what's their perception that of the organization that creates the low morale. I also believe that you focus on two things in any department, and that's mission and values. I want to make sure that those are clearly expressed and that everybody understands what that guiding light, if you will, is for us as an organization. And the other item that I would include in that is that training is always important. I've never once seen a department that would say that training or the training is too much. So I would make sure that we are doing the training that's needed at all levels to make sure individuals are proficient at their jobs.
Thank you. These next two questions are from Shane Dobson. They are related, so I will take this one first and point it to Chief Fulham. Your thoughts on battalion aides, command assistants, essential or not?
Essential. Absolutely. Absolutely essential. I actually had the opportunity of seeing 2 battalion units leave as I was waiting for this to start, and I wondered if there was aides in them with this rain. there's too many functions that are being done in a command vehicle as you respond for a person to be driving and also trying to do those things that are necessary before you ever get on scene. I was on an airplane the other day, and I thought about the fact that there's always a pilot and a co-pilot. And that co-pilot's not just sitting there. They're taking care of tasks. It's absolutely important. It is something that I think if you don't have it, I know you had it before, that you would need to have again.
Thank you. Chief Everett, your thoughts on battalion aides, command assistants, essential or not?
I believe on any incident, there's always a need for a command aide or a command assistant. What's not clear in how you're asking that are these specific appointments that you are an assigned battalion aide, or when you get to the incident, are you trained to serve as an aide to the incident commander? Because we kind of have it both ways. I do believe that there must be trained people on any scene that are able to serve in that capacity. Now, whether it's in a specified position and that is your sole responsibility, I'd have to look at how your organization is structured, because I've done it both ways. But on any scene that I have, I make sure that any battalion chief, that if I have an extra battalion I can call, or my safety officers are all available and can train and can serve in the capacity to serve as a command aide or a battalion aide. So I'm not sure if you're talking about a specific position, because I know there are some departments that have assigned drivers for their officers who also can serve in that command aide or battalion aide capacity. So I'd have to get a little more information on exactly how it's being carried out.
Understandable. So here's the follow-up question along the same lines. Your thoughts on minimum staffing for engines and trucks, Chief Everett?
Okay, we are currently operating under 1710 where I am. We had a SAFER grant, which if you're familiar with, it requires that you're staffed to that particular level. So although our community does have an enormous structural deficit, we do staff under that requirement. And that is what we do. So I'm, of course, supportive of it, given the fact that you have to look at how that resource is going to be allocated. Are you going to stick to that 24 hours? Or are you going to allow times that you can ride short? Or are you going to examine your resources? But the basic goal that we're using now is one that follows 1710. We do recognize that it is a very costly standard, and it has to be examined very closely to look at, do all of your units have to be followed that particular staffing level, or there's some that you can offer in an alternative format.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, your thoughts on minimum staffing for engines and trucks?
Okay. I also agree with NFPA 1710. I think having 4 individuals on an apparatus is paramount. You all are probably well aware of the study that came out, the NIST report. I think it was 2010. It demonstrated the efficiency and the effectiveness of a 4-person crew over 3 and 2. I think it's essential that when you arrive on the scene, you're able to operate with 4 individuals, and if necessary, make entry to save life. And that less than 4 means that you're going to have to make a decision about whether you commit 2 individuals to a fire and have only 1 person outside to rescue them. So I think it's absolutely necessary. I also would like to say that I had the opportunity to read that through the public safety initiative that the CEO has started, one of the commitments was 100 firefighters over the next 3 years. And I clearly read there that it was about 4-person staffing. So I'm in full support of it.
Thank you so much. Our next question from Monica Brembry. What leadership qualities do you possess that will help you effectively lead this department in a positive direction? The leadership qualities you possess that will help you effectively lead this department in a positive direction. Chief Fulham.
Well, I consider myself a transformational leader. And as I mentioned earlier, that's about empowering others. I'm not going to come here with all the answers. The answers are out here. And so what I believe is that coming on board, I have to listen. I have to be willing to accept new ideas. Like I said, a lot of times when the problem comes, so does the answer, if you'll just listen. So I believe in being a transformational leader and empowering others.
Thank you. Chief Everett, the question is for you now. The leadership qualities that you possess that will help you effectively lead this department in a positive direction.
I believe the most important thing to consider when you're talking about leadership, that the act of leadership requires your ability to be flexible. As a fire chief, there are times that you're going to be the leader of the team. There are times that you're going to be a team player as another department head. And there are other times that you're going to have to be able to do both. So I think the most important quality that I would bring is being flexible. I'm also one that believes in participation in whatever the decisions are that are being made. I like to assemble a huddle, the same as you do on the fire ground. I like to hear input from everybody on the command staff. Everybody will have a different perspective. So I think the importance you will see that as a fire chief, my voice represents the voice and the thoughts of many. I'm willing and able to take the responsibility for the final decision, but I believe there has to be some groupthink, some input, lots of clarity, and a lot of flexibility.
Thank you. That was our final question for the afternoon. We're going to go next to closing statements. But first, I'd like to thank everyone who submitted questions. The questions were very solid, and it has given the department a moment to meet you and hear your thoughts on your leadership styles and your leadership ideas. And we'd like to thank the department for submitting those questions today. Now we'd like to move on to your closing thoughts, the messages you would like to leave with this department should you have the opportunity to be the next chief. We begin with Chief Fulham.
Well, I would also like to thank the department for the questions. They were challenging. It was exciting to hear the type of questions that were being asked. Obviously, I could think of questions in my own mind of what may be asked, but those were poignant and important. It demonstrated that the firefighters are concerned about the organization and concerned about their future, and I believe the future of this community. So I welcome the opportunity to join the team. I believe that we can do great things together. I think this is a dynamic, vibrant community. I have lived here before, and I'm willing to come back and live here again and work with each one of you to move the fire department in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Everett.
Well, thank you. I must say that we're just getting comfortable with the questions, and now you're stopping. So I don't know quite what that means. We're just getting really comfortable here. But again, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me the opportunity to come and share my thoughts with you and give me the opportunity to hear some things from your perspective, because I believe that's important. You're not as much looking for a fire chief as a person is looking for a home in which they're going to become a part of and a community to serve. And I think there has to be an important match. It can't be one where one is coming to seemingly come and change and dictate and change things overnight. There's an opportunity to transform and to work together and to decide what the identity of this department should be based on the best interests of this community and the elected officials that we're here to serve. So I just want to say thank you. I hope that you've heard my answers. They came from my heart and based on my experiences, and I accepted your questions with the understanding that you're looking for the best fit for your organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead and give them a round of applause. I heard it. Let them know. This has been a very informative session, and again, I want to thank you for preparing and taking the time. If everyone could hold their seats for just a moment as we wrap up, I want to thank Interim CEO Lee May and the Board of Commissioners really for their leadership in spearheading this type of event. This is a first and is a professional courtesy to the department to meet the candidates before tomorrow. The public, the general public, will meet you and hear and ask questions of you as well. And so we thank you for taking this time to spend with the department today. Many staff members coordinated this forum. I would like to thank the staff of Fire Rescue, Human Resources, the Communications Department, DCTV, our DeKalb County Television, and Tyrone Hardiman. Tomorrow night's forum is a public forum for the general public and therefore will be streaming live on DeKalb County Television to give the entire community an opportunity to meet you and to be a part of the process. I've been very proud to serve as your moderator today. I thank you for this opportunity. And right now I'd like to make sure all are aware that they can meet. You can come meet and greet these two candidates on the second floor in the Pier Auditorium as we now host a light meet and greet reception. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time today.